me, it's like understand the product that you're buying. So it's the most expensive thing that we're usually going to sell in our life or buy in our life. And nobody's educating you on the product that you're purchasing.
In the same way that what you guys did with building.
To me, it's exactly. I didn't see the differences. So when I asked that question, she goes, no, we just let people kind of go through and it's the other agent's job. And I said, well, I don't agree with that. It's like, I'm going to take everybody through. So when somebody comes, can I take them through? I'm going to explain the house to them. So basically, I think she was excited because she didn't have to do that much. I, could take somebody through there. So there was a guy who came for a second showing, and I thought he was going to put an offer in. And I asked him, he goes, well, I think your partner's asking too much money for the house. And he goes, well, I'm looking to put an offer on another house. And I said, what house? Maybe I can help you. And actually, he took me to that house, and he took me to a couple other ones. So he wanted somebody's advice. And he was working with the real estate agent.
Yeah.
And one of the houses that he took me through was a house that I built. So, and even if I didn't build it, I would have been able to tell him. And I said, he was a doctor. I said, doctor, so the price range of that house is the right price range. I built it because there's certain qualities that are in there. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the same as this other house. To give you a good example, the wrought iron rails that we used in the less expensive house was a pre-manufactured product. Put it together, still look beautiful, getting that look for less. The wrought iron rails that I did in my partner's house was this artist, his name is Scott Langton, out of Ann Arbor. He did hand-pound wrought iron. Now, you talk about an artisan, he did Sylvester Stallone's house. He was on the back of the Robb Report. I mean, this guy was an artist. I said, I understand if you don't want to pay for that, but this is what you're getting. This is what you're getting here. And you know what? And it's all priced accordingly. So here's a guy who's buying a multi-million-dollar home that's not educated.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, is a problem.
It's concerning.
Yeah, it's very concerning. So if it's happening on the multi-million-dollar level, what happens for the person who's buying $100,000, $200,000, $300,000? So at the end of the day, he ended up buying my partner's house because now he was educated. So when I step back, and let's say I would have never got involved, the buyer would have bought something that he didn't understand. The seller would have never sold his home.
Yeah.
So, and to me, more and more people are being impacted on a daily basis because of that, because people don't know. I don't know if you've seen the news out there right now, but there's this whole big thing about commissions. And these big real estate companies are getting sued, And the biggest problem is this. A lot of people complain about the commission because of one reason, and one reason only. There's no value.
Yeah.
99% of the agents out there are not giving the value that they should be giving. And the value is become an advisor. Become a really good advocate and advisor to your customer, that at the end of the day, if you're taking them through 4 or 5 houses, okay, you're going to be able to tell them which one to buy and all the reasons why. I do this little thing with all the agents that come on board right away, even existing agents, and I give them this one little test, and everybody fails this test. And it's so important that they know this for their buyer, and they don't. This little simple thing, because nobody's being educated on that side. So I get it. So you need somebody who's been in the industry building homes. This way you can educate people better and educate the agents. So if you can educate the agents, and now that education will turn into them advising customers way better.
And them, yeah, that's a really, you really broke that down well. That's really crazy to think about, because you're right. There's a lot of situations where you might as well go through the process on your own and save the money.
And so that's the thing. I get that all the time, oh no, I can do a better job. And
I'm saying in regards to if they're getting no value anyways.
Right.
I'm saying.
Oh, yes, completely.
That's what I'm saying.
Because, and you know what, Ryan, this is the sad thing, because the biggest percentage is like that. They feel that everybody's like that. So when I come in, because I don't have a real estate license, and I did that on purpose because I did not want to compete with my agents. So I go to the high-end listings. I go to these listings with them to help them. And when I tell them the story, it resonates with them. And they've never heard anybody say that, you know. Our job is to make sure that you are keeping more of your money, that this home that you buy increases in value, you know. Customers want to keep it pretty simple. When you're selling their home, there's 3 things that they want. Sell my home fast.
Yeah.
Give me the most money, and I don't want to have any problems. And I set that thing up from day one to make sure that we have a great transaction happen for everybody who's involved. And there's a lot of agents that just don't do that. They just don't know, you know, and so they're not being taught. And there's a simplistic way of teaching everybody, especially today. But we do these events, which is called product knowledge events, and we take all of our agents. We invite everybody. I like to teach everybody, by the way. You just don't have to be part of our company. And we walk them through homes, and we show them what are the different things. You know, we take them through new construction. You know, most customers feel that they don't need an agent or an advisor to buy a new construction home because that company is going to take care of them. But they're completely wrong. They don't know all the things that they should know. You know, that's kind of the problem with a lot of builders out there, even including myself. It's very hard to tell them every little thing that's going to happen. You know, it's the only thing that you're ever going to watch in life being built. You know, you get to see it live, you know. Yeah. And so there's a lot that goes into it, you know, a lot that goes into it. So again, the reason why I got involved, and to me, the most exciting thing is the real estate side, because is where you can truly impact way more people.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I had a couple questions in regards to everything that you have going on. So there's no doubt when you're involved in construction, you're involved in real estate, you're dealing with problems all the time.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, first off, how did you start to handle them originally when you probably didn't handle them as good as you do now? Mm-hmm. And what are some things that you've done differently in your future that have benefited you over time in terms of how you deal with as an issue arises, how to handle it when one of your employees doesn't know how to handle it? How have you gotten better at that process?
Yeah. You know, so first and foremost, if there is a problem and let's say one of the trades screwed up, your project manager didn't catch it, you know, was not on the job, really watching things, you got to take care of it. You got to really find out what's going on and take care of it, you know. So I guess being honest and upfront always, you know, and saying, hey, somebody screwed up.
With the customer, you're saying?
Yeah, and taking care of it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And then in regards to managing, because at some point that was just you. Mm-hmm. You would be that main point of contact talking with the customer. And at what point?
Well, I first of all wanted to make sure I never had a problem. So this way I built something to last.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And honestly, Ryan, and I'm not just saying that. So I had to do this project in Bay Harbor, Michigan. And the customer bought the penthouse.
Near the golf courses by chance?
Yeah. It's right there. So cool. Bay Harbor, if you went downtown Bay Harbor, there's 2 big buildings. They both sit in the Marina District. One was called the Old Fishing Lodge. They have 2 big domes. And this customer wanted to buy the penthouse, and he wanted to add another story to the penthouse. Well, this is a 4-story building with retail below. You're not adding a story to the building. You're adding a 5th story, and you have 35 residents below. So I was like, okay, this is a big project.
Yeah.
The engineering, you're ripping off the roof of this building with 35 people living below. How do you do that? And you got to make sure that these people who spent a ton of money on their units, you got to protect them. And, you know, the greatest thing I got to say out of that project, when it was all said and done, now I also had the right customer that wanted to make sure, because we had to go into people's units. We had to tear stuff apart and redo it to access things, okay?
Wow.
Because you got units stacked on top.
Yeah.
So there was these shear walls in the building, okay? The shear walls protected the building from moving in, you know, with all the wind. So the engineering company that we hired was the same engineering company that did the summit. This was in Detroit at point in time, the rotating restaurant.
Okay.
And so we hired them, and then I hired another engineering company to double check everything that they did. So these shear walls that ran in the building we could not move somebody's interior wall, not even an inch. So we had to shore up these shear walls and make them support that upper floor. So we found a way to do it, and we had to use steel. So we had to cut walls. We had to add this steel. So there was a lot. You had to put a certain amount of torque on the bolts and this and that. So I had to make sure everybody checked it. So you had the engineer. I had another engineering company check it, so to make sure we didn't have any liabilities. The greatest thing about that project, at the end of the day, we're not to have one complaint. Not one complaint. That never happens, first of all. I always get a complaint. It's always something. But because I kept that so tight with me being there, and I had a great project manager, I went up there once a week, was highly involved, and I look at that. So to me, the problem that you have out there, there's so many trades, so many people are involved, and that's why some of these houses now have problems.
Yeah. So there's not enough of the main person that has to deliver the product
overseeing
it, make sure that everything's
correct. And you're
correct.
relying on your project manager as you scale. When you were talking about earlier, how did you get bigger? There was a point in time we had 7 different project managers, and you're relying on them out in the field to make sure they're ensuring that everything is being done correctly. And if you're building $5 million homes, $7-8 million homes, and it's not happening, it's not good. So as a company, you got to be careful on how you scale.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you scale. Because everybody thinks, oh, wow, you're just going to make more money. That doesn't necessarily happen.
Yeah.
You actually start making less money with more headaches.
Yeah.
So, it's not an easy thing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you just better be ready to get beat up. It's like the Rocky movie, but you better keep getting up.
For sure. For sure.
So,
and what was that like? So when you had those 7 project managers, were you not completely out of the field, but for the most part, you were not at a lot of these homes that were getting finished?
I would go out, but I wouldn't go out as often because now you're running kind of a system.
Yep.
And as you start running that system, in order to scale, it takes you out of other things.
For sure.
So that's where you have to make a decision.
And what did that look like in terms of managing those people? Did you have meetings on a weekly basis to make sure you had expectations?
We had great meetings.
What did that look like?
So it wasn't always, so all project managers weren't running high-end projects. They were running our developments. They were running our communities. And it was making sure that ensuring everything that was supposed to go in that house was going in that house. Everything was ordered. So we had meetings with purchasing, with sales, with the project managers on each project. Every week on a Thursday, we still do it today, on our project. I'm still in the building and development business. I have a brand new project at 26 in Shaner. So we do the same thing that we do. So there's a lot of people involved, making sure that everything is running right so you can get that home done in a timely manner.
Yeah, and be able to deliver the same product as it was when you were day one, the solo guy.
It's very
delivering
tough to
this.
do.
It is very tough to do.
Yeah, and you're organizing all the trades. That's another thing. Let's say if somebody shows up and you say, "Hey, roofer, we're ready for you," and he comes out on the site and he goes and he sees the rough carpenter still putting plywood up.
Yeah.
On the rough. Well, you're not ready. That's the other thing too, is to respect the trades, to make sure that when you call them out to do the job, it's ready for them. Yeah. Nobody wants to come out and have to come back several times. Yeah,
that sparks a question for me. As you grew, what was the hardest part in managing everything? What was the hardest part?
It still is, trades. So if you think about it, you're using 40, 50 different type of trades and suppliers between everybody who's involved on that one home. And they're not hired by you. You're the general contractor. They're contractors. So the toughest part is this. When you ask them, hopefully they're going to show up. And then they don't show up. And then the customers, you're telling the customer, oh yeah, this is the schedule. Well, the guy didn't show up.
They're not going to call him. They're going to call you.
Exactly. And so then they assume you're lying to them, first of all, which I never liked that part. And I would have to call the customers sometimes and say, listen, I would never lie to you. But I said, unfortunately, our business, these people are not hired by us. They're contracted by us. And when they tell us information, we tell you information. That's probably the biggest problem out there right now, even more so. And I could imagine, I mean, we know that there's not a lot of people out there wanting to get into this business.
These trades, yeah.
Trades. And so the trades are having a tougher time. And then you always have stuff like this. The project goes wrong. Something happened at that project. So they can't show up to your project. So.
Yeah. So you transition into the next step was real estate.
Yep.
And so you said, I heard you briefly, you skipped over a couple of these things. So title as well.
Yep.
So
Title.
what are all the companies now at this point?
So it's title, mortgage, it'll be other things. So kind of going back from the original vision and what we started here. So when we started the real estate company, it wasn't just to sell somebody a home. It was to take care of that customer on anything that they might need in their home. So that was the bigger vision. Create a great relationship with them, and then start offering them other services that they could use or products that they would use in their homes. And because of the relationships that I had, the national ones, like Kohler or lighting companies, tile companies, Sherwin-Williams paint products.
Yep.
So right now, we also introduce to all of our homeowners that close with us, hey, you get a free gallon of paint, you get some tools from Sherwin-Williams, and you get up to a 30% discount when you purchase at Sherwin-Williams. So if I can start offering different things to our homeowners at discounts, and that takes care of them better, what do? We become top of mind. That agent always becomes top of mind. So the mortgage services, the title services was only to bring greater services for the entire transaction.
The whole experience from top to bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Because those three components, title, mortgage, real estate transaction, buying a home, they all go hand in hand.
Wow. Did you know that was always going to be the direction?
Yes.
Or when did you decide that?
No, it was from day one. So
Day one.
One thing I skipped over, a big thing that I kind of skipped over, and this was...
Well, you've done a lot, so it's okay.
In 1997, I became an investor into a network marketing company.
Okay.
So still building houses, still doing this. I met these guys actually through my wife's cousin, and they introduced me, and so I became an investor into this network marketing company. And it was a mess. Later on, it just became this big, huge mess. I don't know if you've ever heard of network marketing.
What exactly? I'm trying to...
Did you ever hear of like Amway or, So affiliate marketing, it's kind of like
affiliate marketing, yeah.
Well, it's not, but it's network marketing. It's so where if I recruit you, you can recruit somebody else, and so on.
Okay.
And we're buying all the products.
Yep.
It could be like Mary Kay Cosmetics. You know what I'm saying?
I'm following now.
Something like that.
It's like the Cutco knives, or
yeah. Very similar. So back in the night, it's always been popular, and I was always intrigued with it. Okay. So instead of going out there and spending marketing dollars to sell your products, you enlist just everyday people. They sell your products and you pay commissions back to them.
Yep.
So revenue sharing.
Yeah.
So in 1997, that company started and became a mess, because of course, I'm the one holding the bag, and, it was all my money in there. I was determined to make it work. So I had to learn everything about it. Okay. And taking that company, you talk about a hell of a ride. 1997, that company started, until 2010, it took for it to really take off.
Wow.
So
talk about persistence.
Yeah. Everybody said, man, he's got a thick head. I had some people at one point in time, just say to the people that were involved with me, goes, you're going down with the ship with them, and I said, no, they don't know we're turning into a submarine right now. But so we took that company from $1 million in monthly sales to $800 million. We took it to So it was nationally and internationally. We took it from less than from 1,000 distributors to 400,000. And, and everybody asked me, oh, you got lucky and this and that. And I said, no, I said, just didn't want to give up. And I always kept shuffling the people around to put people in the right position. I think it was 2004 or 5. I'm trying to remember, 2003, 4, 5, when I had to make a decision. The company was not doing well. And so I ended up making a decision to pick 2 people that were going to build the company with me. And they were the 2 youngest. And one of them was the one that I kind of recruited in Grand Rapids. And I think he was like the 40th person to come on board. And so all the higher ups, the more successful network marketers, were not happy. I lost 90% of the people because of that decision. So everybody thought, and then you're second guessing yourself.
Yeah.
And then you're feeling defeated too. And I just look back at that, and I always tell everybody said, oh, it wasn't anything to do with being smart. It wasn't anything. It was just a never endless commitment to make it happen. And I had a lot of money on the line at that time. Never would have expected the amount of money I would have made. I'm thinking I'm going to lose all this money. Yeah. And the people that made a lot of money. So we had a big transaction that took place. It was a publicly traded company that bought the company in 2012. And we paid out $40 million to our original people that were involved. And the 2 guys that I brought on as my partners, they walked away with real big money. I ended up taking a lot less, and I did it on purpose. I always said, to me, it wasn't about the title or, I just wanted to be the guy on the winning team and move around the right people in the right spot.
Yeah.
I could be the water boy. I said, it didn't matter, So, and I always go back to that day because I had the lowest time in my life and the highest time in my life, And so, if you're an entrepreneur out there or thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, don't be scared about it, But you gotta have the the willingness to just keep going.
Yeah, what was that breaking point? I'm curious. Like I said, or like you said, that's a long period of time that you were growing. And what really changed? What really pivoted? Because it usually happens pretty quick.
I would say the marketing message was we got it really pinpointed down, the marketing message with that company. And I remember in 2009, we getting together and getting that marketing message down, and it was just perfect. And that to me, that's an important part. It's like, creating your brand. What do you do? What are you really known for out there? So you can have all these great things, but, how does everybody perceive what you're offering,
No, that's a really valuable piece.
So if you can make it very clear to them and they understand, and when you say it, they just know it and they want to be a part of it, that's where, it becomes powerful. So again, going back to why I love this real estate, 99% of all the agents are doing it a certain way. We're a very small company compared to some of the largest companies out there. And we're looking to change an antiquated system and doing it completely different for the greater good of people just buying homes. And for the agents as well out there. We want to make sure that we're providing something that's way better.
Oh, makes total sense. Total sense. So through all this, you've had obviously tons of ups and downs. You skipped over one because it was a massive down that you almost forgot about.
That was the way I would try to forget about the down. But I always tell everybody this, going through it is never easy. I mean, you're at the brink of losing everything. But at the same time, I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't change it, because what we learn the most through all of the trials that we go through. To me, that is the biggest lessons. If you're winning and you never lose, for anybody to say, I always win, I never lose, I don't buy that. You see a lot of it on social media right now. Everybody looks like they got a lot of money. They look like they got a lot of things. You have no idea. just try to build something great. I tell everybody, it's a hard thing to do. I try hard every day to do this. Put yourself last, put others first. It's an easy thing to say, hard to do. Take the money out of it, put others first. I always built the companies now. It's how do I make sure I take care of my people first? All the decisions I make is about the company, never Vito's self-interest. Because if I do, it's never good for anybody. So I try to live by those things, and then it's a trickle-down effect, You'll have bad people out there that'll take advantage of it because you're putting yourself last and putting them first. But our competition needs those people, so they'll leave, and that's where they'll go. And so
it's a smart way to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, so. I want to wrap things up with a couple questions here that I usually end every podcast with. So 2 different directions. So we have your particular industry, so we'll say real estate. If you were to give yourself 3 pieces of advice, you were 17, 18, 19 years old, you're just getting started, 3 things that would save you maybe the most time, most energy, most focus, what would be those things that would benefit you the most if you could only give yourself 3 pieces of advice for that industry in particular?
Well, I think you take it with any industry, and actually this would be for everybody. When you're younger and you start making a lot of money and you look at these athletes, same thing happens. A lot of people want stuff now, and they don't want to wait. And if you can wait a little while and start really investing and building, that's a great wait. Now, the things that I would do different, when my kids say to me, I would have probably done like resort properties. So I could have gone anywhere in the world.
Okay.
And built out resort properties where you have rentals and you have, sales and you have a lot of different things. So I definitely, looking back, you can easily say now, what are the things that I would have done differently? And, to me, I always loved, houses, always loved them. And, don't worry. You cannot constantly worry and be in fear of something that you don't even know that's going to happen.
Yeah. So being in the future in the mindset versus just being in the present.
Mindset is such that it's the battle of the mind is probably the hardest thing, out there. And people get caught up in fear right away. They're always thinking, what if? And it didn't even happen. Worry about what you have today. Don't worry about what's coming tomorrow. I got to always tell myself that too, by the way.
No, it's very important advice.
That's another thing, and try to just, depending if you have a family, try to make sure you take that time. Don't constantly be on the phone, constantly just be working the business and forget about your spouse and your kids, because there's no way you can take that time back. So.
Absolutely. Then my second question is more generalized. There's tons of people out there that are either maybe they're deciding they're not going to go to college, or maybe they just finished college. And so many people, we already talked about this even off camera, how overwhelming the internet can be, how overwhelming it can be to be like, I could be in real estate, I could be a doctor, I could be, there's so much out there. Now it's I could sell things on Facebook Marketplace and make $1 million. There's everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you were to give someone some advice in terms of how do you sift through all that and how do you make a decision on what their path is, what would be some advice you would give that person to figure it out?
That's a tough thing because, I put myself back at that age and what I do. But looking back at it, you got to definitely find your passion, because the passion will motivate you when the market's down. When there's no money and you can't take a paycheck, what's going to motivate you? I tell everybody that all the time. If there's
what would you do even if
passion,
there was
you have to have a passion. That passion, because you know what, we're gonna have ups and downs in the market. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen at one point in time. But be prepared when the market's down and take advantage of it then when the market's down. And if you're not, then you're gonna lose out. But passion is the biggest thing. You got to be passionate about something. It's got to be about changing something. There's some people that just love the money and they'll do well and they'll pick something. But to me, the passion, there's just the passion of the love of money. And I don't think that's a good one.
Yeah. Any other piece of advice that you'd give to that person trying to figure out what those things are? or ways to get started in that. So say they do find a passion. What's a good first step for that person to get started in whatever that industry is?
Well, do some research, network with the right people that are in that industry. For instance, when you hear plumber, people think, oh, why would I want to be a plumber? Well, I know a plumber who's got 1,000 employees working for him. That plumber makes a lot of money. So I always tell people that there's, when they're looking at a trade, what part of that trade excites you? Because a lot of people don't want to do the laboring side, but maybe they're a good salesperson. And right now in that industry, in the trades industry right now, there's a huge, huge opportunity. But you got to find out what excites you about whatever you do and focus on that passion that's in you and what you can do, your strengths, not your weaknesses. That's the other thing you should do. What are your weaknesses? And just don't think about them, because everybody says, oh, you got to strengthen your weaknesses. Maybe at the beginning you do, but I always focus on my strengths, and whatever I'm weak at, I give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So focus on your strengths, really look at your strengths, and that usually starts to get you to the point of making good decisions then of what you want to do.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense. All right. Well, I want to thank you one last time for being on here. This has been an amazing chat, and I really appreciate you telling me all about your journey. There's so much stuff that happened in there that I'm sure you even were remembering as you were telling the story. So we really appreciate you making the time.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. And I want to thank you all for making the time to learn today, believing in the possibility that life can be better, and challenging yourself to grow. I believe that everybody's pursuing what they feel to be their dream life, and hopefully today you got one step closer. We'll see you next time, and never stop pursuing precision. All right, that's going to conclude episode 18 with Vito. I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. I'm now going to recap the top 3 things that I learned through his story. 1, take pride in what you do. So one story that stands out to me is during the crash in 2008, 2009, 2010, him being in the real estate industry obviously was a huge time in his career. And instead of lowering his standards and lowering the quality of work that he put out at that point in time, he stayed true to who he was and what he believed in, and still put out quality work. And through that time period, yes, he may not have sold as many homes. In the long term, he held on to his reputation and continued to put out great work, allowed him to stay consistent all the way through his career. 2, when finding what you're going to do in your career, think about if you're willing to do that job when things are at zero, when that market does crash, when things are all falling apart. Because at the end of the day, that will happen at some point in your career. And the only way you're going to make it through that time is if you care enough about doing what you're doing or serving the mission that you serve throughout that time period, regardless of if financially things go well or not. 3, and I would say this is the most impactful out of everything that he said throughout this interview: serve others first. Everything about all of the facets of his business was all about serving others. The reason that he started his real estate company is because he found that in the process of selling the homes that he built, he saw that there was a need where the customers were not being served as well as they could. Now he's gotten into the mortgage world. They weren't being as served as they could be. And what he's continued to do is think about how he can best serve his community and the people around him, which has made him wildly successful in every department of selling and buying homes. All right, guys, I want to thank you one last time for tuning in to episode 18 with Vito Terracciano. This was a really impactful episode if you're in the world of real estate or looking to get into the world of real estate. I hope you took as much as I did, and we cannot wait to see you in the next one. Never stop pursuing precision.